Okay, in class today, we just did one where we had this scenario. There's only one parabola there. What's the other thing that's implied? AF, stay with me. What's the other thing that's implied? Well, another function, that it's like above or below, except it was just 0, so you didn't have to draw the line. Do you get what I'm saying? And what I'm trying to say is that there was another thing, y equals 0 right here. Don't you normally set parabolas equal to 0? Yeah. But what if I changed the question from when, not when was the pumpkin in the air, which implies it's in the air until the height is what? 0. At the moment the height is 0, the pumpkin isn't in the air anymore, right? That's the moment it hits the ground. So what if I change this to, when's the pumpkin up here? And let's say, well, you launched it. How high were you when you launched it? You were letting it go at 2 meters. So then what if I change the question to, when is the pumpkin at 3 meters? Would you please take the same equation that we just had, the answer will be totally different, and tell me when is the pumpkin at 3 meters high? You might be thinking, like, I don't know where to stick the 3. Well, you're right, these 3 has to go somewhere. Figure it out. I'm going to pause for a second. Well, you take the red parabola and figure out when that red parabola hits 3. Hint. Well, no, I'm not going to give you any hints yet. See if you can do it without my hint. Pause right now. Okay. Imagine for a moment that your partner said, well, I put the 3 in here. What would you explain to them that was not the right place to put the 3? Yes. How could you say that? That's for the time. That would be a time is 3 seconds, and that's not it, right? So where should it go? If it's not there, where does it go? Instead of greater than 0, which means off the ground, we want it to be equal to 3. That's where it goes. Raise your hand if you had it in the right spot. Okay, so you guys are just being cagey. Nobody'd answer me. All right, so then what do you do to solve it? What do you mean solve? You mean get the solutions? One of those 4 names? The solutions, the roots, the zeros, the x-intercepts? You might be like, what? What do you mean x-intercepts? If I solve this by subtracting 3 from both sides, do you get that's effectively going to take my line, drop it down to 0, and allow me to find the zeros? Maybe you never thought of it that way before. But that's what you're doing when you're subtracting 3. Negative 5x squared plus 10x minus 1 equals 0. And then you find the roots, the zeros, the x-intercepts. I have a saying, if you can factor it, you should. But you can't factor this one. So you just can't do the problem? Yes, you can. What do? Quadratic. All right. Will there be 2 answers when you do a quadratic, typically? There is, yes. And if there is 2 answers, does that make sense in the context of this question about pumpkins? Yeah, because it hits 3 meters on the way up and on the way down. Hence, 2 different times. Does that make sense to you? There's 2 answers because, look, when I move this thing up to 3 feet, or 3 meters, it hits it on the way up and back on the way down again. Okay. Let's take another one. And let's say I said, here's an equation, negative 2x squared. This is about a baseball that you throw up in the air, plus qx plus 8. You know some stuff, you don't know some stuff. Based on what I just told you, talk to the kid next to you about what you know and what you don't know. As soon as you realize, oh, wait a minute, we don't know this, or we do for sure know this about the baseball. Okay, talk to the person next to you. I'm going to pause for a second while you figure out what you do and don't know. All right. JB, what's something you knew? 8 meters. And how'd you pick meters? Can't really tell if it's meters, can you? So it's at 8 something. Yeah. Normally we had a negative 4.9 over there, which conveniently Mrs. pretzel rounded to, I know, pretzel, anyway, you do use pretzel as an abbreviation. Okay, so anyway, she rounded that to -5 last time, but I changed it to -2. Did anybody notice gravity changed? Ah. Did it get stronger or weaker? Weaker. So then we're not on Earth anymore, are we? I don't know if you haven't thought about that, but if the gravitational constant changed, we're not on Earth anymore. Otherwise, gravity would be about -4.9 right there. Okay, so, or we change the units completely. Anyway, I hope you noticed that matters. Then, that does mean we're a starting value of 8, whatever we are, units. 8 units is probably safe. How about that? Anybody notice that the q was the velocity? All right, and so therefore it's an unknown velocity. Okay, now this is kind of annoying, but you can do it. What's the vertex? To save you time, all I need is the x of the vertex. Find the x of the vertex. I'm going to pause for a second when you give it a try. Check with a partner, a person sitting near you. See if you got the same thing as they did. I know, it's a little strange. Neither one of you guys knows? Sometimes it helps people to have a sketch. That's 8. The vertex is here, and do you remember me telling you for the tennis ball lab, which, by the way, I want to remind you, tennis ball lab is coming up. It's not due like tomorrow. It's going to be due Monday. But if you were really smart, you'd do the tennis ball lab tonight. Know why? Because there's a problem like it. Not saying it's exactly the same problem, but I'm just saying if you practice by doing the tennis ball lab tonight, that's helping you for the test. Not saying there's anything as hard as that. That's pretty tough, but at least there's problems. Kind of like it. So anyway, bottom line, I would do the tennis ball lab tonight, or at least start it, because then you're studying for the test by doing it. Okay. I wouldn't just do that. I would also look at other things like, do you know how to do regression? Do you know how to do what I'm just about to show you? X equals -b over 2a. How many of you knew that formula? Okay, now so if you know that formula, why would this stop you? Just because there happens to be a q here, it's okay. What's the answer? X equals what? Not just q. Not just q. Negative, no, not plus and minus. This is not a plus minus. It's just a minus. -q over 2a, and then a is really what? Okay, final answer. Maybe some of you were simplifying it because you had already canceled the negatives. Q over 4. Raise your hand if you got that far. Okay, awesome. All right, it's okay to have a Q in your answer. Happens a lot in pre-calc. You don't just get answers that are like 6. You a lot of times get answers that are in terms of Q or whatever variable. All right, that was finding the vertex. How about finding that? Let's not do it, but let's talk about what you would do. That spot right there, it's one of the whats. Roots, x-intercepts, zeros, and I'd use the quadratic formula. Could you do that if you don't know this? Sure. You just stick it in wherever the formula asks you for what letter? B. Wherever the formula wants B, you'd put a Q. Okay? So, -q plus and minus the square root of q squared minus 4 times -2 times 8 all over 2 times -2 is -4 on the bottom. And there is your x equals thing again. That's the x of this spot. Why don't I find the y of that spot? Think about it. What is y at that spot? 0. Okay, so all we need is the x. All right, so all I'm trying to say is you can have your answers in terms of a letter. All right, moving on. Here's an equation. Verify with your partner that you get the same slope for it. What is the slope of this. And no, it's not 6. Find out what the slope is. 2y equals 6x minus 12. I'm going to clarify that minus 12 there because that was a little messy. So, Dice of Destiny, how'd you start this one? Row 1, person 3. That's you. I like it. Y equals 3x minus 6. Does that make it easier somehow? Yeah. What is the answer? 3. Raise your hand if you had 3. Okay, what's parallel to that? Well, equations that have a slope of 3. So here's the question. Write an equation for me that's perpendicular to this and goes through the point R, comma, S. Write an equation that goes through a certain point and has a certain slope. Hint, point and slope. What's a slope? Well, you got to know what's perpendicular to this. What's the point? The point is R, comma, S. The theme today seems to be you don't have to have numbers. You can use variables where numbers would normally be. I'll pause for a second while we put this all together, see if you get the same thing as your partner. Okay. Hopefully, you knew we were talking about this. Y minus S equals negative 1/3 x minus R. Out of curiosity, how many had that one right? Okay, awesome. I would do some review tonight if I were you. Test is tomorrow. Have a good day.